Hello, family. The last few weeks we've been looking at the introduction to the book of Philippians, and one of the things that Paul's been focusing on is our prayer for one another. And so I just wanted to spend a few minutes talking through just applicationally ways that we can grow in that individually and as a church. That may be going great for you, and so you can listen to this if you'd like. But if you're looking for ideas of how, I just wanted to share a few things that I found helpful in my own life. The first is making a list of people to pray for. You know, we can have good intentions about prayer, but then just kind of be blanking on what to say or who to be praying for. And Paul says in verse 3, I thank my God in all my remembrance of you. And so when people come to our mind, it's definitely a great opportunity to pray for them. But sometimes we need a tool to help us remember. And so for me, that comes from making lists. And so I have a list of, I use my shepherding list, but I'd encourage you can just start small and just jotting down maybe the names of 5 people at GBC, maybe people you know already, maybe some you don't know. I'd encourage you to grow the diversity of the list, having married people, singles, older, younger, people you know well, some people you may want to come to know better. But have a list of people's names in the church that you can be praying for. And then secondly, put that list somewhere where it will call it to remembrance, where it'll be helpful to you. So that may be where you load the dishes or do the dishes. That could be where you get ready in the morning. Could be in your Bible for devotional time. One of the things that I've found really helpful is putting it on my phone so that it's there anywhere I go. And for a lot of us, we're tempted to look to our phones regularly for distraction or entertainment. And so what can be helpful is when you're going on to look at social media or some sort of app or game, before you do that, pull up that note that has these people's names and spend some time in prayer for them. One of the things that I found fascinating about this passage is that Paul says that as he's praying for the Philippians, he's filled with joy. And so why don't we turn our attention toward joyful prayer? And so for some of us, putting these lists, having it quickly accessible on our phone could be really helpful. So starting with a list, putting it somewhere that you need it to be, and then finally just thinking about the content of what you pray for them. I've found that copying and pasting or writing out some of Paul's prayers is really helpful to jog my memory and to train my thinking before I begin to pray for people. And so since we're going through Philippians, you might want to write down verses 3 through 11 or just verses 9 through 11 and have those listed before those names. And then pray those scriptural things for the people on your list. And so some of the things that you could be praying for is Paul says that he thanks God for them and for their partnership in the gospel. So thank God for the person on your list and pray that we'll grow together in gospel partnership, both sharing in the gospel together as Christians and also sharing in the spread of the gospel together. And then Paul also says that he has deep affection for them. So pray for the people on your list that you would grow in affection for them and that we would grow in affection as a church. And then just what we saw this last Sunday about praying for discerning love to grow more and more in this person's life. And so you can take the person you're praying for and pray that they will learn to wisely love and that they'll have the grace to wisely love the various people in their life. And depending on how well you know them, you can be praying for those various relationships that they have. Praying for their children by name, praying for their parents, praying for the coworkers that they have, or unsaved neighbors or unsaved family, praying that they'll love them well and wisely, and that God would give them the grace to do it. And then it's helpful just content-wise too to go where Paul goes, to think about the confidence we have in that future hope of what we will be when we stand before God one day, when the consummation comes and that full fruit of righteousness, that harvest is finally here. Because as we think about that day, and as we think about these particular people and what they will be like on that day, it helps us grow in love for them. And it also just encourages us and fosters joy as we think of all that God is doing in us even now through the work of Christ. So those are just some ideas about some practical ways to grow in prayer. You may have some great ideas to share too. Feel free to reply on the GBC family email, or you may be able to leave comments in this video. But the goal of growing in our prayer for one another is something that we can all pursue.